Hi everybody, I hope you guys can all hear me well. So I'm just gonna wait a little bit to see who's watching right now. I see Melinda and Francine and Midi. Hi Midi. Yay, so yes, so you can hear me well, right? Perfect. So hi Nuthai, Barbara, nice to see you. I miss our classes. Good. Good, so everybody's ready, right? I'm going to try to be brief and quick so that I don't waste a lot of your time. I wanted to start this live series with the basics of selling your dolls because, hi Anna, because some of you might be starting from ground zero, like you don't have a store yet, you don't even know what are some of the steps involved in selling your dolls, while some of you might have already done some of the work. You've maybe already opened an Etsy shop, or maybe you already started a blog or have I'm a bit nervous. Some of you might already have a Facebook page or an Instagram or some sort of legwork that you've already done, but I prepared some slides to kind of walk you through what we're going to be covering, and then I can also read them and not lose my train of thought. And so I just ask that you're a little bit lenient with me. I've never done it like this. I've done lots of teaching online, and I've done IG Lives, but I mostly shared some of my workshops, but I've never actually tried to like explain things sort of face to face, so it's a little bit unnerving. So I'm gonna start with this. So we are going to start with the doll making, treating doll making as a business. And can you all see the slides well? Just let me know if you can see what I've just shared. Okay, I think you can. Aku-san, yes, okay, so you can see the slides, perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna walk you through, if you were from ground zero, what you would be doing to start selling your dolls. And I'm gonna start with the basics, and then next Tuesday I'm going to discuss pricing, how to price your work. Like I'm gonna tell you how I work, how some of my friends work, most of the regular prices around natural fiber art dolls or Waldorf inspired dolls. That's mostly what I'm going to be focusing in, but I think it can apply to any sort of handmade doll business, like rag dolls or art dolls or toys, or even other types of product online businesses. So today we're just gonna cover the basics. Next Tuesday, I'm gonna talk about pricing, and the following Tuesday, I will go into marketing, and the very last one on October 29 is gonna be doll photography, because I really think that photography is super, super important, but we'll just get started with the basics. Okay, so first I'm gonna walk you through your doll product, and then we're gonna figure out like how to set up a store and how to get paid for the dolls as you sell them, how the things that your product listing needs to include, and some tips very, very briefly on the photography, because I'm going to dive onto it at a greater length in a future, in my last IG live. Then we're also gonna go through having some company policies or store policies, especially if you're going to be offering custom work. It is good that you know what you can offer, what you can't offer. You need to decide some matters before you start selling your dolls, instead of running into issues once you've already sold one. Then I'll go briefly over marketing and what happens once you actually make one of your sales, packaging and all that, and then a little bit on record keeping, because these are all the, I would say, basic 7 steps to selling your dolls. Okay, so let's get moving so I don't talk for like 100 hours. So on your step 1, which is your doll pattern. First, I would advise you to sell dolls that are from a pattern that you design yourself. That is not a pattern that you bought from another doll maker, because the pattern is going to be very recognizable. So it's not going to look like you're making it. It's going to look like that other person is making it. Also, you might run into copyright issues if the doll maker allows pattern sales from her pattern. That's awesome, but if you are using somebody else's pattern, like, that's not very good business. And to start building a market for something that somebody else already built or has already worked to create awareness for. And also, there are so many doll makers right now and so many toy makers. So you have to find an angle in your design or the way you make the doll that makes the doll uniquely yours, so that you can be discerned from all the other people. Maybe it is the way you attach the arms, maybe is the way the doll body proportions, maybe it is that your dolls have really big eyes or have very tiny ears or something like that. But I will advise you to spend some time first on designing your doll to make it very unique. I mean, we're all making kind of like the same dolls. They have 2 arms, they have 2 legs, they have 2 eyes. They mostly use more or less the same materials. So that makes them all kind of, to the unexperienced eye, they might seem all look alike, but they are not. And so if you really want yours to stand out and have a chance at being noticed, then you have to work a little hard on making your design unique, making your photography unique, making the way you dress your doll or the way you present your doll unique, so that it stands out. Aside this, you want to make sure that the doll that you're selling for your own purposes, it's durable. Whether you're gonna, depending on the materials you're using, whether you're gonna make 2 seams, 3 seams, how you're gonna reinforce this, like, is the head well attached? Is the face felted enough? Are the seams in the body strong enough? If I pull hard, will something come loose? And that it's high quality, that all the if you're making the doll with clothes, that everything is neatly finished, that everything is pressed, that all the seams look nice, that if you did embroidery, that everything's tied down properly, the buttons. I mean, you just gotta make sure that you're selling a product that is durable and that is high quality, so that you can stand behind it completely, trusting that what you're putting forth is something good. There are some safety concerns depending on who you're selling or marketing this doll to. If you're selling it for children, you have to understand that some items can't be on a doll if the doll is going to be geared towards a child under 3, child under 6, child under 12. When I started making my dolls, they didn't have buttons, they didn't have snaps, they didn't have anything that could potentially become loose and end up in a baby's mouth. So that's where, like, that whole age appropriateness or who's your market. If you're making adults and they're for adults, please don't photograph them with children, because you might be liable if something ever happens to someone saying, well, you're marketing to children, you have the dolls in the hands of children, doesn't matter the price they have, you are still marketing the dolls as a child product. So if that is your intention, if you want to make dolls for kids, you have to think about that and say, okay, so what is going to be the age appropriateness that I'm going to gear my work so that I can then use the pretty tulle laces or the pretty buttons or the fancy snaps, right? There's also, with doll making, comes some labeling requirements, so you have to search exactly for your country what applies. Like in the States, you have to have a label sewn in the doll that is not removable, that has the maker, the year it was made. Like, you have to search the requirements for the particular country you live in. In the European Union, you have to certify your dolls CE. I mean, there's a lot of things that you need to cover before you actually put a doll up for sale. And one is, what are the requirements for labeling that the doll needs to have? Can it be a tag sewn into the body, or can it just be a tag attached, like a paper tag attached to the doll? Can I put it on an exterior bag because I don't really like labels on my dolls, etc., etc. Like certification, in the States, you can certify your dolls to be CPS IA, I think. Don't quote me on that one. But in Canada, we have different requirements. In Europe, they have different requirements. So you have to make sure that you know which applies to you, or which country do you normally or will you expect to sell more to, and what are the requirements that you as a seller must comply with. In other things, you might need a permit. If you are going to be running a business from your home, you might need a home-based business permit. Here in Canada, we need to get a certain label for any item that has stuffing. If you're going to be selling toys for little kids, in some countries you must only use new materials. You can't repurpose fabrics. Regarding this type of dolls that we're talking about, as long as you're using natural materials like fabric, wool, you don't need to have them tested for lead content. But it's a good idea to always do your research to know what are the labeling requirements that you need to meet, what is your business, as a business owner, what do you need to comply with, etc., etc. And so then let's say that you've done all that research and now you know what you need to do with your doll. You've designed your pattern. It's durable, it's high quality, it's beautiful, it's unique, you love it, you're super pumped, you're going to start selling your dolls, and you're like, but how do I sell my dolls? Well, the advice I can give you is to use a selling platform. So there are tons, right? And I'm just gonna mention them. There's Etsy, Shopify, Dawanda. You can sell your dolls on eBay. You can sell them on Big Cartel, on IndyCar. You can create your own shopping cart and host it on your website. But for example, if you're on Etsy, there's tons of doll makers, but there's people that are on Etsy searching for handmade toys. They're not going to search for you specifically because they don't know you, right? So it's good to be in one of those platforms to begin with, which already have a lot of traffic, so that people might find you. That would be Etsy, that would be the Wanda, that would be eBay, because people go on searches and they try to find, like a doll for a present or for themselves. Having a separate store, which would be Shopify or IndyCart or Big Cartel, those don't have search engines. So you need the actual address, or you need to type in on Google or DuckDuckGo or Yahoo or whatever. You need to say natural dolls for children, or art dolls, or contemporary art dolls, whatever the specific category of doll that you're making. But that takes a little bit of time for those search engines to pick up your store. So it's a bit harder, or it might be a second, like a step up from having an Etsy shop or from having the Wanda shop. And once you decide where you want to sell your dolls, it's a good idea to go through the seller's handbooks of each of those providers because they're going to have different requirements based on where you live. Some will accept some type of payment, some will upset you are going to have to use Stripe with certain ones, you're going to have to use Square, you're going to have to use PayPal, so you will have to open a PayPal account. In some instances you can only open a shop in that place if you have a PayPal business account, and for that one you need to have an actual business bank account. So there's a lot of legwork that you have to inquire about before you actually like start selling your dolls. So you need need the doll, you need to know what are the legal requirements for yourself. Then you need to know the labeling requirements for the doll. Maybe you need to have it tested, maybe you don't. And then okay, so how am I going to sell it? Okay, I'm going to open an Etsy store or a big cartel store, and I'm going to accept payment through PayPal or through business through Stripe or whatever, right? So you need to like go step by step and decide on all these steps. And then once you have your store and you know how you're gonna get paid, then you're gonna have to list a doll, right? And you're gonna have to take photos of your doll. So when it comes to listing your doll, let me just go over my notes so I don't forget anything. There's a few things that you need to consider, especially if you are listing, for example, on Etsy or Dawanda or one of those sites that has a search engine, which I strongly recommend you do from the beginning because it's how I started and it's a wonderful way for people who don't know you to find you. You are gonna have to be very creative with the titles for your doll, so that they actually pop up in the search engine, right? So there's something called keywords. You need to use certain keywords. For example, if I list a doll as Petunia, natural fiber art doll / Waldorf inspired doll / handmade toy / each of those words is a keyword, right? And so when someone types in the search handmade Waldorf doll, I have 3 of those keywords in my title, right? So it's more likely that I'm going to pop up in the list of search results. Aside keywords, it's important that you use some of those same keywords in your title, that you use them on the first paragraph description of your, on the paragraph description of your listing. For example, if at the top you are naming your doll Waldorf inspired doll / handmade toy / all natural blah blah blah, then it's important that those same keywords are somewhat repeated in the first paragraph of the doll to confirm to the search engine that you're actually selling or listing something that is tied to the title, right? And also in the listing, in the actual description of what you're selling, you have to be really creative, and you have to you don't necessarily, when I say tell a story, I don't mean like say, and then she went this way, and then she went above that way, and then she found a pebble. No, that's not what I mean. I mean that you have to be creative in the way that you explain to people who this doll is, maybe what she likes, what she doesn't like, how she was made, what she's made out of, right? It's very important that you list all the ingredients that went into the doll, not just because there might be some allergies, right? For example, if you work in a studio that has a dog, you have to disclaim in that there's a pet in your house, because some people might be very allergic to that. You have to disclaim all the ingredients, like for example, the dress is made out of linen, blah, blah, blah. It has snaps, it closes this way. The better you explain to people what they are receiving, the more they'll feel comfortable making that purchase, because you are telling them exactly what is coming with the doll, right? How many items of clothing? Are the seams finished? Are they not finished? Are they just zigzagged? Are the shoes removable? Is the hair stylable, right? Or is it just permanently styled? Is it a wig that you bought and sewed to the doll, or is it a wig that you made yourself? How is the hair attached? Are the eyes embroidered? Are they painted? Are they glass eyes? Did you make all the clothes yourself, or did you bought some items for the doll? Does your doll include small parts? What is the age appropriateness you consider this doll suitable for? Is it hand washable? Like, how will people take care of it, right? So these are all things that you have to consider when you're doing the listing. And then you also have to include some legal things like the allergy disclaimer, whether it's a certified CE certified, CPS certified or not. Is it made of all new materials, or are you using repurposed materials? Does it have wool? Some people are allergic to wool, etc., etc. Is everybody like sick of me talking like 100 times? Good Lord. I'm just going to take a little break and have a little, I think there's an area here where you can ask me questions, but I'm just going to check it really briefly to see if anybody has asked anything. No, perfect. I will have at the end of this a little time so that you guys can ask me. Thank you, Miri. I'm running out of steam. I need more coffee. So yes, we're on the listings. You also have to calculate the different shipping charges, right? So if I live in Canada, what would it cost for this doll to be shipped to Brazil? What would it cost to be shipped to Philippines? What would it cost to be shipped to the US? Is it at, am I shipping with tracking number? Very, very important that you ship with some sort of tracking number signature required, because heaven forbid you ship a doll somewhere, the person claims they didn't receive it, and you have no proof to claim that they did. Hasn't never happened to me, knock on wood, but it has happened to some of my friends. And depending on how you get paid, you might be liable to refund that money because the customer is saying they didn't receive the doll. So now you owe them the money and you're out of the doll. So it's very important that when you choose to ship your dolls, there's some sort of tracking for you to cover yourself, and also so that you don't lose the doll. Right? One of my dolls, I shipped it. The address that I was given in PayPal said Ireland. It turns out my customer actually lived in Australia and she hadn't changed her PayPal address. And for some beautiful miracle, the people in Ireland had still in their system the forwarding address, so they rerouted the doll from Ireland to Australia, and the doll made it. But we were all in a panic because with these dolls, especially with one-of-a-kind items, even if you try to remake it and you try to reuse some of the same materials, chances are it's not going to be exactly the same. And in my experience, people are very understanding and they give you time to do it, but then you would be kind of out of all the time that you've already spent on the doll, and it would be just heartbreaking. So when you're gonna list all the shipping international rates, or if you don't want to ship international because that's too much of a headache, well, you have to choose only to ship within the country that you're in. Hi. And so then we are gonna go into, where's my slides? Oh dear. Here we go. So now you've done your listing. Now you have your I don't think I talked over photos, right? No, I didn't. So I'll talk about photography just a little bit because I'm going to discuss this in like greater length in the very last session. But when you take product photos of your doll for your store, you might have an Instagram account or a Facebook page, or you might have a website, right? But for the actual product photos of the doll, you want to make the photos really clear, take them from different angles, have really good light. I normally shoot right by a window. I don't like artificial lights on my photos. Then you want to take different angles. Make sure that you showcase all the little details that you made for this doll. If you use a certain button, or you're particularly proud of the way you finish the hem, or it has socks and shoes, make sure you take like close-ups of the doll, of her hair, maybe her outside, like if you style it a certain way. Make it inviting for people to look through those photos and have time to fall in love with the doll and appreciate all the things that you made for it. I don't normally do this anymore, but when I started selling my dolls, a lot of people were interested in seeing how they were constructed. So I made sure I had a photo of the doll naked so that people could see, is she well stuffed? How do the seams look? The better experience you create for your future customer. They have no means of touching the doll. They have no means of holding it, of telling how heavy she is, how she feels. Are the fabrics used in her clothing soft, rough? Do they have texture? So those are all things that you can think about and say, okay, how can I tell people what this doll is about? So you're going to take photos to show them, but also as you describe the doll, you can talk about the fabrics, talk about the way the doll is finished, so that people have as much information as possible for them to make the purchase and buy your doll, right? So like I said, I'm not going to go into great length into photography here because we're going to talk all about it at the very last one. But you just need to take certain product photos. It depends on the type of store you have. You might be allowed to have 3 photos, 5 photos, 12 photos. So make use. If you get to take 12 photos, make sure you take 12 photos. If you only get 3, make sure those 3 photos are really good. Once a close-up of the face, once a full body with all the clothing, and once maybe a close-up of a particular detail that you're specifically or very proud of. And then we go into what I call boundaries, or having shop policies. This is really important because you don't want to wait until you actually have an issue with a customer to say then, oh, well, I didn't tell you that I don't give refunds, that if you buy this doll, that's it, right? Or can someone cancel a custom order? What do you feel comfortable offering your customers as some sort of reliability? Let's say that you sold the doll and they're not particularly happy with it. Do you stand by your product and say, fine, I'll take the doll back, I'll give you a full refund minus the shipping charges, right? You ship the doll to me, you will be out of the first shipping, I'll pay you for the second shipping maybe. So if you are offering your customers guarantees or safeties in case they don't like the doll, and this is something I did at the beginning, then they're gonna feel more trusting that you are a professional doll maker, that this is something that you stand by, that you will give them a refund if they don't like the doll. Or maybe after several years of making dolls, you're like, nope, all my sales are final. You buy the doll, you make sure it's something you want, and after I ship it to you, that's it, right? But depending on how you get paid, you have to make sure that you are not liable by that payment processor, because with what I was talking about, the whole tracking thing, if they say they didn't receive it, you might have to refund the money whether you like it or not. So it's very important that you have all those policies beforehand, and that you know what you can offer, maybe at the beginning to get your business going. Maybe as like saying, I offer free shipping. You don't pay shipping for this doll for the first 6 months of my doll business opening. I will be offering free shipping on all my dolls within the country that you live in, or within the community, like for example within the European Union, because you want to get momentum. You want to make a few sales. You want your dolls in the hands of people. You want to receive reviews. You want more people to be aware that you're selling dolls. And the best thing that you can have is word of mouth. But how do you get it if you don't make any sales? And sometimes at the beginning, it's important to offer that certainty or that security to your customers so that they're happy with their purchase, right? Also, when I started, I offer custom work, and it's a beautiful way for you to learn as a doll maker and also to make really great customer relationships, because from my experience, the majority of my custom works are people that I know deeply, that have supported me plenty of times over the years, because our relationship is closer than just selling a doll to you don't know who, you ship it and you don't know nothing, right? Whereas making a custom doll, you know the person, you know where they live, they give you their set of ideas or whatever, in whichever way you work your custom dolls. Maybe you just offer a set of guidelines. I will make you a dog, or your doll will be a redhead, but you can choose from these 3 different kinds of redhead, and she will have this set outfit, but you can give me ideas on the colors. I mean, you need to set some guidelines for yourself and for your customer. Otherwise, it's going to be a gong show trying to make something that they have in their mind. So you have to figure out how you are going to work, like what you can offer and what you require of them, and will you take a deposit? Like, what is a good deposit for you? Is it 30% to get, to buy the materials and get started, or 50% or 60%, whatever you want? You're your own boss. But it's important to have all these things written down so that you can refer to them. You can also email them back, because that's one thing that we're not touching here, but we'll touch on the pricing scenario. Running a doll business is hard work, is a lot of work, and a lot of the hours that you spent on the business are not on the actually making of the dolls, which is the fun parts. Bye, Francine. I'll see you later. So yes, you will spend tons of time answering conversations on Etsy or on the Wanda or through Big Cartel, and people are going to say, can you make me a doll like this? Can you change this? Is this age appropriate? Can she wear the same clothes this other doll that I bought has? And you have to answer your customers. These are people that are interested in your work. Of course, you have to answer them, but that is time that you're spending on running your business. That is not time spent on making the dolls. And usually, in my experience, that time is unaccounted for when it comes to how you get paid. So, the clearer you can have all these things, the more work that you pre-make in the sense of, these are my shop policies. I'll make sure I'll link to them. I'll make sure I refer to them several times during the product listing. And once I ship the doll, I'll make sure I'll send them these policies so that they are well aware and we're all on the same page. Let me just click through the next. Another thing is that you might be, to get, the ball rolling on your business, you might offer layaway. You might say, if you can't afford to buy this doll at its full price right now, I can hold it for you. I used to do that. I would say, how much can you pay me for now? And then I'll put the doll on hold for you. But you need to know, okay, do they have to pay it within 2 weeks, within 3 weeks, within a month? Am I going to hold the doll for 6 months? Like, you need to have a set of guidelines. And also, very important, you need to tell your customers, how often do you ship? I am a horrible shipping person. When I sell a doll, I usually hold her or him hostage for like a week or 2 weeks. but my customers know. I tell them, I'm gonna need a bit of time to say goodbye to this doll. I might make an extra item. I might just take a few more photos. Most people are very understanding if you talk to them, or you might be selling a lot of tiny dolls and it is more cost effective on your time because all of this work is just you alone to do it. Let's say I ship on Mondays and whatever I sell throughout the week, people are aware that you ship once a week. So if they buy the doll on Tuesday, they're not expecting you to ship it the next morning. Some people do. Some people ship right the next day. And if that is something that you want to offer your customers, you say, I ship as soon as, I'm happy to make this sale and I will ship it right away. Then say it. Right? Or no, I ship once a week, and if you have any questions, email me or contact me or whatever, but you just gotta make sure that you tell them how often you're shipping so that they don't get all upset because you haven't even shipped the doll and they bought it 5 days ago. So what's happening? So then, bad feelings start accruing there because they're not on the same page with you. And then a type of that, we have this horrid thing. You made the doll, you figure it all out, you made beautiful clothes, you have, taking gorgeous photos and being very creative with the description and have your shop policies, and you open your business bank account and everything else, and you put your doll in your shop and nothing is happening. So on top of all this work that you've already done to sell this one precious doll, you are still going to have to work very hard to sell it. So one way is you have to think about it like this. Okay, making the doll is one of the many steps. Making the doll clothes, one of the many steps. Photographing the doll, another step. Putting up the listing, another step. Now I have to market it. This is just another step, right? So, for example, how will you create awareness, not just for this particular listing, but for your work in general? I always recommend people to blog because it did me lots of good. So it's something that I did, something that worked for me, that still works for me. So I think it's good advice. But why is blogging so good? First of all, because it's done on your own platform. You're not doing it on somebody else's place, right? It is in your own home, in your own website, for example. And it also helps you with search engine optimization, SEO. Every time you post a blog, you tell those search engines that you are alive, that you are regularly updating your website. There's new photos. The photos have alt descriptions. The alt description says handmade natural doll. So the website, the search engine knows that you do this, right? And so when someone is looking for something similar, you are going to pop up in those search results. Somebody who has no flipping idea you even exist will land on your blog, will see photos of your lovely dolls, will see what you're making, and they're like, maybe I'm not quite ready to make a purchase yet, but I can get to know this person because I love dolls and I like what I'm seeing. So I'm going to keep coming back. And eventually one of them will buy one of your dolls. So blogging is great, but it is a lot of work, and maybe you're not interested or you're not ready to start blogging your work. Maybe you'll drive traffic to your store with a YouTube channel. Also a ton of work, but also a very good way to drive traffic, to be in a place that people already are, that are already looking for things, and they can find you. How do you drive traffic to your store? Maybe you post quick little videos of doll stories. Maybe you post quick little sewing videos of how you make your doll clothes. Maybe you post videos of the doll as it's finished, and you start building a collection of all the videos of your dolls that the dolls have you made. Maybe you post a video on your process, etc., etc., etc. YouTube is an awesome big massive channel where a lot of people are hanging out all the time, and that's one way that someone can discover you, see your channel, then see that you have a store, then go visit your store. Oh hell, that video that I just watched of her making a doll witch, the witch is there for sale, I can buy it, I love it. Perfect. That's one way to drive traffic. Another one is to have Pinterest, and then you can pin the actual listing of your doll and put it on Pinterest, and that way people can click on it and go straight to your listing. This is awesome because it's like one click away, right? And you don't have to create a video or create a blog post or do nothing. You just have to pin one of the images from your product listing. That's why it's so important that your product listing photos are awesome, so that they actually caught the attention of people that are browsing on Pinterest. Pinterest and YouTube are search engines, right? People are using them as search engines. I want to find something. So Pinterest is another good idea. And then you have your business social media. Maybe you've already opened your shop and you're also going to open a Facebook business page and an Instagram account with the same name for your dolls to not create any confusion. And you're going to regularly post on Facebook when you have a doll up for sale, so that people can, there's a lot of people on Facebook, there's a lot of people on Instagram. You can use hashtags so that people find your dolls. Waldorf inspired dolls, natural fiber art dolls, natural dolls, art dolls, whatever the particular category of doll that you sell, you can add all these hashtags so that people can find it. If you don't want to have a Facebook page, you don't want to have Instagram, you don't want to have a YouTube channel, you don't even want to have a blog, but there's also a very great way to tell people that you have a doll up for sale, which is a newsletter. A newsletter is a wonderful way because you have the emails of all those people that want to buy your dolls. Maybe they won't buy every time, but you have their email and you have their consent for you to tell them when you have a doll up for sale. So that's awesome. But you are going to need to have a way to capture those emails. You can have a landing page on your website. You can have MailChimp account. There are tons of email providers so that you can be in touch with your people, because they want to know more about your dolls, and so that you can tell them when a doll is up for sale. Then you can just ask your friends, please share my doll, please ask them. At the beginning, I used to do this a lot. I used to ask all my family to tell everybody that I had turned into a doll maker and I wanted to sell my dolls, and they were constantly recommending my work. And you can also go in on Facebook groups. There are a lot of Facebook groups where you can advertise your dolls, or maybe they're just for chit chat regarding collecting dolls. Mostly they're going to have some sort of thread where you can advertise your business or your products. Sorry. So there are ways that you can start to garner more attention to your particular store and the particular doll that you're trying to sell. And then once you make your sale, it's important that you go over what the invoice needs to have. Obviously, you need to have your address. Are you comfortable with putting your home address in all your invoices? You're gonna need to fill a customs declaration if you're shipping it across a different country. Sometimes you need to have a specific code for the type of product that you're shipping. And then you're gonna have certain requirements on your shipping labels. Nowadays, every time I go ship something, they ask me for the phone number of the customer, and I didn't have this set up in my shopping system, so I had to go and work it that way. You are also, you sold the doll, now you have to package it. So I advise you to include some sort of care instructions for the dolls, printed care instructions. I send mine as a PDF because it's really, really long. I go into great detail on how to take care of the doll, so I don't want to have that, I don't want to basically print a lot of stuff that I know might end up in the garbage. But so the label for your dolls, right? What legally you're required and what creatively you want to include in the label of your doll. Some people use birth certificates. what marketing materials are you going to include? Postcards, your business card, a photo of the doll printed. Some people do watercolors for the doll as they sent it, or send some of their other artwork. A thank you note is really advisable. The more things that you put in this box to show your gratefulness for having made the sale, the better experience your customer is going to have, and will leave you an awesome review or tell their friends, oh my god, I just bought this doll and look how it came packaged, look how beautiful it all is. She sent me a beautiful postcards and a very beautiful handmade thank you note. The doll came packaged really well with protective material. Actually, the box got wet, but the inside the doll was perfect because she packed it in this cello 100% biodegradable bag, etc., etc., etc. It had tissue covers, etc. You can go into depth on your branding, but I'm not going to touch on branding because that's a really big beast. But you can use the same colors that you use on your photography, on your website, on your social media, etc., and include them in the overall way that you're packaging your dolls. And for example, I normally send a small lavender sachet with my dolls because the dolls are stuffed with wool, and so lavender deters bugs and whatnot, but also because I know the dolls are going to be going through airplanes and whatever, and the wool absorbs smells, and so I don't want the doll to smell nasty when someone opens the box. But some people are allergic to certain smells, so it's important that you are aware of this and that you consult with your customer before you ship it. Some people can't stand smells of any kind. In other regards, there are certain things that you can't ship to certain countries. You can't ship a lavender sachet to Australia because they don't allow any plant material. They're trying to protect their island. So there's quite a few things that you have to be aware of when you're shipping your dolls to certain countries. And finally, the worst of it all: accounting or record keeping of some kind. The bane of my existence. So aside all of your hard work up until now, you have to keep records of everything. You are liable for absolutely everything, because you're going to be selling your dolls. Even as a hobby, you have to declare that income in all countries basically. So you have to keep a really good record. I know it's awful. You have to keep a really good record of all the materials that were involved in the creation of your doll, of all the tools that you've bought to run your doll making business, all the office supplies that you go through, paper to print, crap and corruption. You have to keep a tally of all your business expenses, your website, your marketing, your newsletter, how much it costs you every month to send people emails, how much it costs you for your packaging supplies, the boxes that you got printed, the postcards, the thank you cards, the cello bags, the lavender, etc., etc., etc. Then you also have to keep a running tab of how many, what your store fees are, your payment processing fees. Stripe is going to charge you a different percentage than PayPal, and Etsy is going to charge you something, and then there's VAT, and then if you're selling a product within your country, you're going to have to add sales tax. In some instances, the most annoying thing is that you don't charge the same tax to everybody. For example, here in Canada, if a person from British Columbia buys a doll from me, I have to charge them one kind of task. But if someone here in Ontario, where I live, buys a doll from me, I have to charge them a different percent of tax. So it's a bit of a nightmare, this whole tax thing, but you have to charge tax on most of your sales. Except I think when you ship overseas, which is awesome, but then you have to do custom declarations. So it's it's one or the other. Then for some cases, depending on where you live, you need to keep batch numbers. Let's say that you make X amount of dolls this month using these materials. You need to keep a tab of that in case one of those dolls has an issue with a kid, that you can be covered and say, well, I use this, this, and this that I bought from here, here, and here. These are the materials I use. And so no, that's not possible. That, like, you know, so that you have some that's another thing. Urban Farm Dolls is asking if how do I track how many hours I spend working on the business? It's almost impossible. Because there's so many things that you're going to be doing that you're not going to have your pen and paper to constantly write about. Like I said, all of these hours that are not in the creation of the doll do not get accounted for when you get paid. All of this work that I just said, the setting up the shop, maybe you want to charge for 1 hour of doll photography and editing the photos. That's good, and maybe you can include that in the price, but you can't charge people for the time that you spend chatting on Facebook, for the time that you spend posting on Facebook groups to advertise your dolls, for the time that you spend blogging, for the time that you go on Instagram and answer questions, for the emails you receive, for the time that that takes you to send a newsletter, for your account time, right? For how do you keep an inventory? Because at the end of the year, in most business forms, or when you claim your income, you have to say, I bought X amount of product to create my dolls, and this is how much I have left. So for the following year, you start with what I had left from the previous. You have to do end of year inventory of your supplies, which is a pain in the neck. For tax purposes, do you need, it depends on where you live. It depends on where you live. In some countries, you do need to keep track of your hours, because depending on how many hours you work per month or per week, you maybe are eligible for certain social security things. Here in Canada, I don't have to keep track of how many hours I work. I just know that I work 40, period, at least, right? Obviously. So accounting, you want to keep a record of how many dolls you made this year, where they went to for yourself. You don't really have to keep that for anybody else, but you are going to have to keep track and keep accounting of all your sales. If you charge tax, how much tax do you owe? How much tax do you have to remit? I don't know. Of your supplies, of all your business expenses, so that when the big man comes and says, you made this much money, you owe this much, and you say, yeah, well, no, because actually I made this much money, but all of this money is business expenses. I had to pay this because I own a website, and I have to pay that because I ship postcards, and I have to buy this, and I have to do that. And guess what? I decided it's too much heck, so I'm paying an accountant, sorry. So everything that you can, there's a lot of things that you can deduct as a homemade business, but it varies from country to country. In my case, I can, because I work from my home, there are certain things that I can claim, like a certain percentage of my electricity bill, of my internet bill, of my phone bill, etc. But then once everything is tallied off, and once I end up with X amount of money, I have to pay close to 30% of that as income tax. So, but I am not going to get to the depressing part yet. We will do that in the how to price your dolls, which is going to be next week. So, I hope I didn't scare you. It is a lot of work, but look around. There are a lot of doll makers. There are a lot of people selling toys. There are a lot of people trying to have this. Doesn't have to be like your full-fledged business. Maybe it can be a side business. Even if you do it as a hobby, you are still gonna have to keep records. You're still gonna have to take photos. You're still gonna have to do some marketing if you want to sell your dolls. So you can do it. It's like not impossible. It might seem a lot because I just went through the whole thing, but I didn't do everything in one day. I didn't even open my social media channels all in the same go. I did first Facebook, and then a few years later I opened Instagram, but first of all I started with my blog. So you don't have to do everything at once. I just gave you an overview of the things that you will need, of things to consider, what I consider good, like pre-work or basic things to do before you start selling your dolls. things that you need to figure out for yourself, like if you need a permit, if you need certain requirements for labeling, etc., etc. And so that's about it. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to stay online a little bit long. It's already noon. Oh my God, I talked for an hour straight. What day and time will you be back? I will be back next Tuesday at the same time, I think, because my kids are in school and my husband's doing away something, and my dog is very tired at this time. So I will do the next one on how to price your dolls next Tuesday. And I do want to say that I'm going to try to write all this that I just told you with all the tips and yada yada yada, and send it on the next Stitchy Notes. Stitchy Notes, it's a newsletter that I have 2 newsletters. I have my love letters, which I send every month at the beginning of the month, where I tell people which kinds of dolls I'm going to be selling. And then, because I get so many questions regarding doll making and how do you needle felt and how do you do this and where do you buy your materials, so I opened a second newsletter just for the people that are mostly interested in doll making, and I send that seasonally. So I am doing seasons right now because I can't be writing 2 newsletters every month. So right now I'm in a season of Stitchy Notes, and it's gonna run all the way to December. And so I'm sending 2 newsletters of Stitchy Notes plus the love letter. So if you want to get this lives business and you want to get like a written, right? Because this live is going to go away in 24 hours. If you want to, keep it as a list, some sort to go through it. Yes, I do speak Spanish, grandota. Then you will receive it on the Stitchy Notes that is going to be sent on October 16th, I think. If you are not on Stitchy Notes but are on my newsletter, or if you're not on my newsletter and not on Stitchy Note either, I just added a new sign up form so that it's easier for people, and it's on my profile. If you don't want to sign up for that because you're not interested, that's completely fine. I do want to tell you that eventually, God, once the Lord gives me some more time, I'm going to put this recording in the slides and some notes and condense all these IG sessions into one long video for YouTube. I just also want to say, you don't have to turn your doll making passion into a business. You don't have to. But for me, the only way I could keep on making the dolls was to turn it into a business, because I couldn't afford to keep learning and just buying the materials for my own personal expression, right? I needed to be able, and also I wanted to share them. I wanted everybody to see the dolls. So for me, it became a need. I need to sell my dolls in order to keep learning, to keep progressing, to keep exploring doll making. And so that is the way I figured it out. And I've been doing it now for 11 years. So that's a long time. And I'm very happy that you were able to be here. Instagram is telling me we're going to be cut off. And how can you keep so many dolls? Exactly. Once you make a few, then all of a sudden you have 15 or 10 or 8. As you're exploring your pattern too, you might have one and then the next one. And so eventually it might become a need for you to sell them. But it's not like you maybe you don't have to, right? I did, Martine, but I just advise you to look up the requirements for toy testing depending on where you live. I can't actually talk at length on toy testing for the UK because I don't live there and I haven't gone through the process, but I'm going to try to include in the Stitched Notes slides some links on how you can find out more information about the requirements for toy testing, okay? Very good. So that was it. Thank you so much for being here with me and putting up with all my chit chat. And I'll see you on the next IG Live next Tuesday at 11 a.m. EST. Okay? Have fun. Bye. I don't know how to finish it. Good Lord.